Do you really think the people around you are completely loyal? If so, you're already in danger. Downfall never happens suddenly. It's built step by step, in detail so small that only a trained eye can see them. Machiavelli, with his politics guided by reality, not ideals, had already warned, those who trust blindly are asking to be deceived. Betrayal doesn't arrive like a storm, but like a gentle wind, carrying signs that many ignore. The sudden silence, the stifled laughter, the exaggerated loyalty, they're all warnings. And if you don't see them, it's because you may already be being prepared for your own downfall. It's hard to admit, but the enemy is rarely far away. He almost always dons the mantle of friend, faithful colleague, inseparable partner. Better to be feared than loved, said Machiavelli, because fear compels caution. Feigned love, however, opens the door to a coup. The end justifies the means, and the most effective means is to smile before you, while in the shadows the threads of conspiracy are pulled. If you still think I'm exaggerating, ask any overthrown king, any betrayed leader. They all received warm applause minutes before losing their throne. And don't think this is a matter of palaces or war. These signs are all around you, every day. At work, it's the colleague who praises you too much but never looks you in the eye when you need to. In the family, it's the relative who shows excessive loyalty while spreading their words too far. In relationships, it's the sweet smile that hides venom, the helping hand that suggests you lay down your own weapons. The appearance of virtue is the perfect disguise. Real human nature doesn't change, it just learns new tricks to mask ambition. The most provocative thing is that you've noticed some of these signs before, but chose to ignore them. You pretended not to see the averted gaze, believed the compliment was sincere, dismissed the muffled laughter behind your back as a coincidence. But none of this is coincidence. It's calculation, it's strategy, it's the calculated use of force in its most silent form, preparing for your downfall. When everyone around you seems to be on your side, perhaps that's precisely the moment they've already decided you're going to fall. But here's the brutal truth. Those who learn to decipher these signs are never surprised again. Virtù, the practical ability to deal with fortune and misfortune, becomes your greatest protection. You become able to identify who is truly on your side and who is just waiting for the moment to turn their blade against you. And starting today, you will learn to read every detail, from the sudden silence to the small gesture that betrays already compromised hearts. After that, nothing will be the same again. The sudden silence of someone who used to talk too much. One of the most subtle, and at the same time most revealing, signs of a power struggle is the sudden silence of those who previously spoke too much. Machiavelli already knew that politics is guided by reality, not ideals, and that even the most talkative fall silent when they discover something they'd rather hide. What seemed like an excess of words suddenly becomes a desert of short, evasive sentences, laden with pauses. It's not the silence of wisdom, but the silence of calculation. And those who observe closely realize, there in the empty space between what was said and what remains unsaid, lies the preparation for a greater movement. It's the prelude to something hidden, as if the mouth has decided to protect the mind before it is exposed. This silence, when analyzed under the logic of better to be feared than loved, is even more dangerous. The habitual talker had a habit of showing off, of opening up loopholes, of letting slip details that allowed us to predict his next moves. But now, by remaining silent, he begins to practice a calculated use of force. He takes away the weapon of information. And if information is power, its absence is an even greater power, because it transforms every gesture and every word into an enigma. Anyone who has worked in a corporate environment knows this. That colleague who always commented on everything behind the scenes suddenly starts smiling less, talking less, and just observing. Make no mistake, this emptiness speaks louder than any speech. The danger lies precisely in the change of pattern. The person who was always noisy and now falls silent is not just tired or distracted, they are calculating. They are rehearsing an appearance of virtue, preparing for the moment when fortune, that unstable wheel that favors the attentive, offers them a chance to act. It is like a chess player who, after rapid and even predictable moves, stops moving the pieces. The pause does not signify weakness, but the imminence of an unexpected check. Politics guided by reality demands this kind of reading. One evaluates not only what is said, but above all, what was left unsaid. If you observe carefully, you'll notice that this strategic silence is almost always accompanied by small gestures. Averted eyes, restless hands, a slight stiffness in the body. These are signs that the mind is occupied with something greater. Machiavelli would say that this is a decision based on true human nature. There is no altruism in this silence, but rather the cold calculation of someone who knows that, by concealing their intentions, they can advance without resistance. It is at this point that the wise man must learn not to confront silence directly, but to use it as an opportunity to test loyalties and gauge hidden intentions. The aspiring strategist who ignores this signal risks trusting when he should be protecting himself. Those who suddenly fall silent may have already formed invisible alliances, perhaps already testing the weight of their absence in their conversations. The end justifies the means, and silence is a powerful tool for preparing betrayal. Constant adaptability, so championed by great leaders, requires you to react quickly. Observe, analyze, record, because soon after this silence, other even more dangerous signs begin to emerge. Signs that appear in exaggerated loyalties, in those promises that sound sweet but hide poison. The exaggerated loyalty that hides poison in the shadows, loyalty when genuine needs no fanfare. But when it appears exaggerated, proclaimed in every gesture and every sentence, there is reason to be suspicious. Machiavelli already warned that politics guided by reality shows that no one offers absolute devotion without seeking something in return. The servant who swears fidelity every day, the colleague who constantly repeats that he's with you through thick and thin, is often merely covering up with sweet words, a cold calculation. The end justifies the means, and excessive loyalty can be the most discreet means of getting closer to where power lies. This kind of forced devotion resembles a counterfeit coin. It shines on the outside, but has no backing on the inside. It's easy to recognize because it sounds rehearsed, like an actor memorizing lines, but lacking the emotion that should underpin them. And if you observe closely, you'll notice that this exaggerated fidelity almost always appears when something is at stake. A promotion, a position of influence, or even preparing for the weakening of one's power. Better to be feared than loved, said Machiavelli, because fear compels constancy, while exaggerated love is treacherous, fickle, and shaped by opportunity. Examples abound. Consider the political environment. How many ministers and advisors have sworn blind obedience to their leader, only to conspire against him days later? Or in the corporate world, that employee who appears more loyal than anyone else, who says, "I'm part of the company as if it were my own," but who, at the right moment, shares information with competitors in search of personal fortune. It's the calculated use of force disguised as words of affection. Those who believe without question end up surrounded by their own armies, loyal only in appearance, and discover too late that their fortress had walls of paper. The appearance of virtue is an old tactic, but it remains effective. The person who exaggerates loyalty knows that deep down, no one suspects someone who is always present, always willing, always smiling. But politics guided by reality demands that you understand. The more loyalty is displayed, the more likely it is to be an act. This is where virtù comes in, the practical ability to perceive the poison behind the honey. Just as a doctor recognizes that an overly strong body may be hiding internal inflammation, the strategist sees that flawless loyalty often hides deep cracks. The wise man is not enchanted by repeated praise or exaggerated promises of devotion. He tests, observes, and creates situations where this loyalty must be tested in silence, not in words. Constant adaptability is his weapon. He understands that true human nature always seeks advantage, and that the most lethal poison never comes in a dirty chalice, but in a crystal goblet. And when this loyalty becomes too exaggerated, almost theatrical, you can be sure praise will soon follow, sounding like preparation for a blow. When compliments start to sound like preparation for the coup, compliments are like perfumes. In small doses they please, in excess they suffocate. When someone starts to overpraise, a warning signal should be sounded. Machiavelli understood that reality-driven politics shows that no one distributes gratuitous praise without a calculation behind it. The end justifies the means, and often praise is just the first step in a larger strategy, a way to lower your guard and make you more vulnerable. What sounds like admiration may actually be a carefully crafted lure to lull you into lowering your defenses. Notice how it works. That colleague who never cared much about your ideas suddenly starts telling you that you're brilliant, that only you see what no one else sees. That family member who was always critical starts claiming you're the family's inspiration. Of course, every human being enjoys recognition, but when it becomes sudden and exaggerated, the wise man should be suspicious. Better to be feared than loved, said Machiavelli, because excessive love and admiration are easily manipulated. Fear forces others to keep their distance. Excessive praise, on the other hand, serves to draw them closer without you realizing the true intention. It's common in powerful circles. Before a coup, there's always a shower of praise. Presidents overthrown by allies heard, on the eve of their fall, glowing speeches extolling their leadership. Businessmen betrayed by partners received, days before, messages of admiration and promises of eternal partnership. It's the calculated use of force hidden in sweet words. And here's the key. Those who need to prepare the ground for betrayal cannot appear as enemies, so they don the mask of friends, shower praise, and position themselves as unquestionable allies. In practical life, you can observe this in meetings, conversations, and even on social media. That overly complimentary public comment, that insistence on valuing your small achievements, is often just a smokescreen. The appearance of virtue manifests itself not only in grand gestures, but also in the way someone pretends to recognize in you a greatness that, deep down, they don't see. They just want to use. Virtù, the ability to see beyond the obvious, lies in not being intoxicated by applause. The strategist must remember, loyal armies are not made of sycophants, but of people who prove their loyalty in action. Compliments, when repeated excessively, don't reveal who you are, but rather what the other person intends to achieve. Constant adaptability requires you to know how to filter, accept genuine recognition, but always question the hidden intention, because often praise is just the first stone placed on the road to your downfall. And when it becomes exaggerated and repetitive, it almost always foreshadows something even more revealing. The ally who, at the decisive moment, won't have the courage to meet your gaze. The ally who avoids your eyes at the decisive moment. The gaze is one of humanity's oldest weapons. Even before words, eyes betrayed intentions, fears, and desires. Therefore, when an ally averts their gaze precisely at the decisive moment, something is being hidden. Machiavelli taught that decisions based on true human nature reveal that no one looks away without a profound reason. Politics guided by reality shows that in these moments, truth lies in the silence of the eyes. Those who cannot sustain eye contact fear being unmasked, whether by the lie they harbor or the betrayal they are preparing. In practice, this happens in crucial meetings, tense negotiations, or even in simple conversations that precede important changes. The ally who once laughed with you, who looked into your eyes as proof of complicity, now lowers their head, pretends to be distracted, or looks elsewhere. It's as if they fear you'll see into their mind. Better to be feared than loved, Machiavelli reminded us, because fear compels sincerity of gestures. False love creates the need to conceal intentions, and when the gaze disappears, all that's left is the mask of convenience. Historical examples abound. How many kings failed to notice their advisor's betrayal simply because they could no longer face the throne? How many generals failed to detect desertions even before battle, simply because their officers looked away upon receiving orders? It's the calculated use of force, only inverted. By averting your gaze, the ally no longer fights for you, but for themselves. It's at this point that the veneer of virtue begins to crack, revealing the hidden poison. In everyday life, this reading can save relationships, business deals, and even friendships. When someone can't look you in the eye when making a commitment, whether to sign a contract or confirm a promise, it's because loyalty is already compromised. The strategist's virtue lies in not ignoring this detail. Just as a doctor detects an illness by the slightest symptom, the wise man understands that a fleeting glance is a symptom of a soul already inclined toward another alliance. Loyal, self-made armies don't look away. Only soldiers of convenience do. Constant adaptability requires you to learn to read not only what is said, but also what is hidden. An ally who avoids your gaze has already begun to forge another path. They may not have the strength to strike now, but they are already laying the groundwork. The end justifies the means, and looking away is a way to protect yourself until the moment of revelation arrives. And when your eyes don't meet, you'll soon notice another, even more dangerous sign. The messenger carrying your words further than they should. The messenger who carries his words further than he should. Every power structure depends on information. But when your words begin to travel further than they should, carried by a seemingly innocent messenger, it's a sign that you're at risk. Machiavelli already noted that reality-driven politics isn't based on well-kept secrets, but on how those secrets are used. The end justifies the means, and for many, being the bearer of their own words is the perfect way to gain the trust of others. It's not just gossip, it's strategy. The messenger often doesn't create the intrigue, but spreads it, multiplying its impact like a wildfire in a dry field. Note that the messenger never admits he's relaying too much information. He disguises it as, "I only shared it because I thought it was important," or "I only repeated it because I trust you." However, every word that escapes becomes a weapon in the hands of others. Better to be feared than loved, as Machiavelli said, because fear imposes silence. Love, on the other hand, opens the door to confidences that become ammunition against you. Those who talk too much to the messenger forget that their own voice, multiplied, can return as a sentence of downfall. Political history is full of examples. How many empires have fallen because intimate confidences fell on deaf ears? How many leaders have lost their positions because a messenger took phrases out of context to rivals hungry for fortune and power? This is the calculated use of force in its most subtle form, not wielding a sword, but transforming words into invisible blades. What seemed like loyalty becomes poison. And so, without realizing it, you discover that you don't need enemy armies to be overthrown. All it takes is a loose-lipped ally. In everyday life, the same thing happens. At work, It's that colleague who, without apparent ill intentions, shares their opinion with the entire room. In relationships, it's the friend who shares details of your private life with others. The appearance of virtue manifests itself when the messenger seems to act on your behalf, as if defending you in your absence. But in reality, they're exposing your weaknesses. Virtue in this case is learning to measure your words, limit access, and cultivate only your own loyal armies. People who understand that true loyalty is also proven in silence. Constant adaptability requires you to treat each messenger as a potential loophole. The wise never hand their most powerful weapons over to someone who doesn't know how to use them. If your words have already begun to travel unchecked, it's a sign that the alliance is compromised. The end justifies the means, and the messenger justifies their existence precisely by exposing their vulnerability. And when this happens, a dangerous pattern emerges. Soon a friend will emerge who, with a calm voice and gentle advice, will try to convince you to weaken your own weapons. The friend who advises you to weaken your own weapons. Among all the signs of betrayal, few are as disguised as the seemingly kind advice that asks you to surrender your own strength. Machiavelli warned that reality-driven politics shows how enemies would rather you weaken yourself than use their swords against you. The end justifies the means, and in this case the most effective means is the gentle word that suggests, "You don't need to be so harsh. Maybe it's better to let it go. It's not worth keeping that weapon always at the ready." Thus, under the guise of friendship, what is being planted is the seed of vulnerability. This advice often comes with a veneer of virtue. The friend who suggests you resign your position, that you relax your defenses, always presents himself as someone concerned for your peace or well-being. But those who see true human nature know that often the real motive lies elsewhere, to strip you of the strength that keeps you untouchable. Better to be feared than loved, because fear keeps others away from your fortress. Excessive love, disguised as advice, can be the key to opening the gates you spent years building. In practice, this is common in places of power. How many kings were persuaded by advisors to disarm their guards, to show confidence in the people? How many business people were led to abandon solid strategies because someone close to them said that being too aggressive could alienate allies? It's the calculated use of force in reverse. It's not about strengthening your own loyal army, but about convincing you to dismiss it. And when you wake up, you're already alone, exposed, and vulnerable. The advice that seemed like virtue was just poison disguised as medicine. In everyday life, the same thing happens. The friend who insists you be more flexible with someone who has already proven disloyal. The co-worker who suggests you share strategic information in the name of transparency. The relative who insists you should give up something valuable because family comes first. All this advice sounds noble, but it hides pitfalls. The virtue here lies in recognizing that it's not selfish to protect your weapons, it's survival. Because those who truly want what's best for you will never ask you to weaken yourself in front of others. Constant adaptability requires you to know how to filter advice. Not every piece of advice that sounds sweet is trustworthy, and not every friend who smiles is loyal. If someone insists that you let your guard down, it's a sign that someone has already glimpsed the moment to strike. The end justifies the means, and for those who desire your downfall, the most effective means is to make you believe that laying down your sword is a sign of evolution. But you'll soon realize that behind this invitation to fragility always lurks the suspicious haste of someone rushing too far to gain your trust. Someone's suspicious haste to gain your trust. Trust is like fruit. It needs time to ripen. When someone shows a rush to earn it, be suspicious. Machiavelli knew that decisions based on real human nature show that no one rushes to get closer without having something to gain. Politics guided by reality reveals that this urgency is almost always strategic. The end justifies the means. And for certain players, the quickest way is to create an illusion of intimacy, shortening distances that should be built patiently. Excessive speed betrays a hidden intention, to occupy a space that has not been conquered, but taken. Notice how this haste manifests itself. The new colleague who, within hours, already positions himself as your best ally. The recent acquaintance who, without you realizing it, begins to speak as if he's been part of your life for years. The subordinate who barely arrived and is already trying to gain access to the inner workings of power. Better to be feared than loved, said Machiavelli, because fear compels respectful distance, while hasty love becomes a dangerous shortcut. Those who rush to enter your inner circle don't seek connections, they seek shortcuts. Historical examples abound. How many advisors have approached kings in record time, only to soon after organize coups? How many businessmen have fallen into traps because they trusted business partners who, within weeks, were already talking about partnerships and shared profits? It's the calculated use of force applied to speed. Rushing the process of gaining trust creates the false sense that fate willed the alliance. But it's not fate. It's fortune manipulated by eager hands. In everyday life, this can be clearly seen. It's the person who insists on knowing every detail of your life without giving you time to observe theirs. It's the new friend who already asks for big favors, justifying it with words like mutual trust. It's even the romantic partner who, in a short time, pressures you for proof of love or exclusivity. The appearance of virtue manifests itself in this haste because it disguises itself as enthusiasm, excitement, natural chemistry. But the strategist's virtue lies in realizing that what comes too quickly almost always exacts a heavy price later. Constant adaptability requires you to value time as an ally. True trust grows slowly through silent trials. Those who want to rush the process are already trying to manipulate the terrain before you realize it. The end justifies the means, and for the traitor the means is speed. But the wise understand that when haste knocks on the door, it's because something is already planned, and the next sign almost always confirms this. The muffled chuckle that escapes when you turn your back. The muffled laughter when you turn your back. Few sounds are as revealing as the muffled laughter as you walk away. It seems small, almost insignificant, but it carries immense weight. Machiavelli reminded us that politics guided by reality is not based on appearances, but on signs. And this is one of the clearest. The end justifies the means, and for those who plot betrayal, silent mockery is a rehearsal for early victory. Those who laugh in secret don't laugh at just any joke. They laugh at the naivete that believes in unbreakable loyalties. It's the smile of those who have already tasted in their minds the taste of their downfall. This muffled laughter isn't just disrespect, it's confirmation that something is hidden. The person who maintains the appearance of virtue in front of you, but who can't control their sarcasm when you walk away, has already let slip the shadow they've been carrying. Better to be feared than loved, said Machiavelli, because fear silences traitors, but false love gives the courage to laugh behind your back. Those who laugh at you in secret have already begun to turn loyalty into a spectacle, and the stage is always dark enough for you not to notice. Throughout history, many leaders have ignored this signal. Kings have been mocked at secret banquets, generals jeered by their own soldiers when their backs were turned, business leaders ridiculed in the hallways of their companies. Muffled laughter always precedes open insubordination. It's the calculated use of force in the form of sarcasm, a way to create complicity among conspirators, to test the cohesion of the hidden alliance. When someone laughs at you without you realizing it, they're creating their own loyal army, but not to you, but against you. In everyday life, this sign recurs on a smaller scale, but no less dangerous. It's the group of colleagues who change the tone of the conversation when you enter the room. It's the friend who holds back laughter when you speak, but bursts out laughing when you walk away. It's even the partner who, in front of others, treats your flaws as a disguised source of jokes. The appearance of virtue hides this venom, but the virtue of the attentive observer perceives when the laughter is stifled, loyalty has already been replaced by mockery. Constant adaptability requires you to understand laughter as a warning, not a detail. It's too small to bring down on its own, but big enough to indicate that the fall has already begun to be celebrated. The end justifies the means, and laughing in secret is one of the surest ways to prepare the ground. Those who laugh in secret today will not be ashamed to join another alliance tomorrow. And if you pay close attention, you'll notice that right behind this laughter appears an even more dangerous gesture, the small detail that reveals a heart already committed to another loyalty. The small gesture that reveals a heart already in another alliance. Betrayal rarely arrives loudly announced. It seeps into the details. Often, it's in a small, almost invisible gesture that a shift in loyalty reveals itself. Machiavelli already taught that politics guided by reality shows that human nature cannot sustain masks for long. The end justifies the means, and for those who have already committed to another alliance, the means of escape is almost always involuntary. A cold handshake, a knowing glance at another, a calculated silence at the moment when their word should be reinforced. These are discreet signs, but lethal for the strategist who knows how to observe. This small gesture can be a departure from routine. That ally who always greeted you firmly now hesitates. That colleague who never took their eyes off you now smiles more at others. Better to be feared than loved, Machiavelli reminded us, because fear remains constant, while false love changes with the wind. The detail betrays the truth that the mouth does not yet dare speak. It is in subtlety that betrayal lies, and those who ignore this end are being surprised when the poison has already spread. History is full of examples of these ignored signals. Roman emperors were betrayed not by grand gestures, but by small glances and whispers among soldiers. Modern leaders have fallen not by open opposition, but by cold gestures from allies who had already negotiated their loyalty at another table. This is the calculated use of force at its most delicate. No drawn sword, no harsh words, just a gesture that, to attentive eyes, speaks louder than any speech. In everyday life, you can also detect this. It's the friend who starts defending someone else more fervently than you. It's the colleague who, when faced with criticism, no longer supports you as much as before. It's even the partner who, in a meeting, crosses their arms when you speak. A small gesture, but one that shows a mind already in another realm. The appearance of virtue tries to paper over these fissures, but virtù lies in realizing that fidelity isn't measured by words, but by consistent details. Loyal, one's own armies don't tremble when it comes to supporting. Only unstable allies let slip contradictory gestures. Constant adaptability requires you to learn to read these signs like someone deciphering secret codes. A small gesture can be the last clue before the final revelation. The end justifies the means, and for those who have already chosen another alliance, the means is to let slip crumbs of indifference. It's a divided heart, which sooner or later will reveal itself completely. And when these gestures begin to accumulate, there's only one inevitable consequence. The moment your downfall has already been decided, but no one dares tell you. The moment when your downfall has already been decided, but no one dares tell you. There's a silent, almost imperceptible moment when your fate is already sealed. It's the instant your downfall is decided in closed corridors, at parallel tables, in knowing glances you didn't witness. Machiavelli knew that reality-driven politics works like this. The most dangerous deals are never made in public, but in the shadows. The end justifies the means, and when your elimination becomes a necessary means for the advancement of others, it becomes inevitable. What hurts is that at that moment no one dares tell you. The silence on their lips and the rigidity of their gestures betray that the game is already decided. It's as if everyone around you knows something you still don't. The ally who no longer looks you in the eye, the messenger who already carries your words away, the friend who advised you to lay down your weapons, they all now share a secret you don't. Your position has already been negotiated. Better to be feared than loved, Machiavelli reminded us, because fear compels loyalty until the last minute. But false love allows people to smile while inside they're already celebrating your departure. History demonstrates this pattern repeatedly. How many kings have been betrayed at banquets, surrounded by smiling courtiers who deep down had already decided on their execution? How many presidents have been applauded in speeches while, at the same time, impeachment documents were already circulating behind the scenes? It's the calculated use of force at its peak. No one reveals to you what has already been decided because your ignorance facilitates the execution of the plan. The appearance of virtue is maintained until the last second because the mask is necessary to hide what is to come. In everyday life, this dynamic also occurs on a smaller scale. It's the group of colleagues who already know you're being dropped from a project but continue to treat you cordially. It's the relationship that's already over for the other person but is still sustained by lukewarm words until a replacement is ready. The virtue here is noticing the heavy silence, the suppressed laughter, the exaggerated loyalty that suddenly disappears. You don't need anyone to tell you. The collective body is already shouting the decision before the news officially arrives. Constant adaptability requires that you never rely solely on spoken words, but that you learn to hear what's left unsaid. When everything around you seems too normal, that's precisely where the danger lies. The end justifies the means, and your downfall can be seen as the perfect way for others to rise. No one dares tell you because silence is more effective than confession, and when you finally realize it, there's no time to avoid it. The only way out is to always be one step ahead, seeing the signs before they become a sentence. Do you understand how it all connects? No betrayal happens out of the blue. Before every downfall, there's a nearly invisible sequence of signs. The sudden silence, the exaggerated loyalty, the praise that smacks of poison, the averted gaze, the messenger who spreads too much, the advice that weakens, the suspicious haste, the stifled laughter, the small gesture, until the moment when your downfall has already been decided, and only you don't know it yet. Machiavelli wasn't wrong when he said that politics should be guided by reality, not ideals. And reality is harsh. Those who don't learn to recognize these signs early on pay dearly. Now I ask you, how many times have you ignored these signs in your own life? How many times have you believed in fake love when you should have understood that it's better to be feared than loved? How many times have you trusted the appearance of virtue without realizing it was just a carefully constructed mask? The truth is, if you don't start applying this knowledge today, you'll continue to be the last person to discover the plans already made against you. What if your downfall was already being prepared right now? If that trusted ally were, at this very moment, taking their words further than they should? If that smile were just a curtain, hiding a heart already in another alliance? It's uncomfortable to think about, I know, but it's precisely this healthy distrust that can save you. Because constant adaptability, the virtù Machiavelli so extolled, isn't about living in fear. It's about living awake. What will you do with this knowledge? Will you carry on as if nothing had happened, trusting in luck, hoping that fortune will be on your side? Or will you decide from now on to observe more, speak less, act with calculation, and strengthen your own loyal armies? The choice is yours, and it is precisely here that the difference between being deceived and being the master of your destiny begins. If anything you heard today resonated with you, it's because you already know you need to put it into practice. So tell me, which of these signs have you noticed in your life? Write in the comments, because your experience might open the eyes of someone who doesn't yet see it. And don't forget, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and keep learning with me. Because this is just the beginning, and the next lessons will show you how to transform every failure into power.